The crowd outside Zacchaeus' church was larger than ever that Sunday morning. The air was thick with excitement and desperation as people clutched their Bibles and handkerchiefs, eagerly waiting to receive their miracles. Inside, Zacchaeus stood at the pulpit, his crisp white suit shimmering in the sunlight streaming through the colorful church windows. His voice boomed with authority as he declared, "Your blessings is near, but only if you plant the seed today." People rushed to the front, dropping wads of cash, gold chains, and even khakis at his feet. But in the corner of the church, hidden behind a cracked door, someone was listening, a young man named Benja, a visitor from the city who had come seeking prayer for his ailing mother. Benja had overheard Zacchaeus speaking with his wife, Mama Raquel, in harsh mocking tones. These people are so foolish. Can you believe someone sold their house just to bring us that gift? By next month, we'll be in Dubai enjoying life. The words struck Benja like a blow to the chest. He stepped back, his head spinning. He had come here hoping for salvation, yet what he found was deceit. Benja clenched his fists, his resolve growing stronger. He couldn't let this man keep fooling the village. Zacchaeus was no ordinary pastor. His church house of grace towered above the small village huts like a palace. The pews were always packed, and his sermons drew people from far and wide. They called him Man of God, and many swore by his miracles. He claimed to heal the sick, bless business, and even foresee the future. But behind the pulpit, Zacchaeus was a different man. He lived in a luxurious home at the edge of the village, far from the dusty roads most villagers called home. His wife, Mama Raquel, wore dazzling jewelry that glinted in the sunlight, and their children went to expensive schools in the city. Despite his wealth, Zacchaeus never stopped asking for more. Every Sunday, he would declare a new prophecy. Someone is about to receive an overflow of blessings, but only if you give generously. And the people would respond, their hope outweighing their doubts. In the dim light of the prayer room, the faint sound of sobbing echoed. A woman, frail and gaunt, sat in the corner. Her name was Amina, and she hadn't eaten in 3 weeks. Zacchaeus had told her that fasting was the only way to break the curse on her family. Amina wasn't alone. Around the church, dozens of believers were on the strict fast, their bodies reduced to skin and bone. Some fainted during the services, but were told it was a sign of spiritual breakthrough. Others had sold their belongings, believing Zacchaeus' promises that God would multiply their sacrifices. The Mwangi family was once one of the wealthiest in the region. They owned vast farmland and a fleet of trucks that transported goods across the country, but all that changed when they met Pastor Zacchaeus. He convinced them that their wealth was cursed. The enemy is using your riches to block your blessings, he had declared. Desperate for God's favor, they sold everything and handed the money over to Zacchaeus. But blessings didn't come. Within months, they were living in a makeshift shelter on the outskirts of the village, their children crying from hunger. Still, they believed Zacchaeus' words, their breakthrough is near. Benja knew he couldn't stay silent. He approached the village elder, Zekaranja, and shared what he had overheard. At first, Zekaranja was skeptical, but the fire in Benja's eye convinced him. Together they began to gather evidence and rally the villagers. Turning point came when a former church worker, Joki, stepped forward. She revealed that Zacchaeus had been pocketing donations and faking miracles. Her testimony sent shockwaves through the village. Following Sunday, the church was fuller than ever, but this time the crowd was angry. As Zacchaeus began his sermon, Zekaranja stood up. Pastor Zacchaeus, Shuka, the time has come for the truth. Air grew tense as the elder detailed Zacchaeus' schemes. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Zacchaeus tried to deny it, but when Benja revealed the conversation he had overheard, the pastor's face turned pale. Under the weight of the evidence, Zacchaeus broke down. Tears streamed down his face as he confessed. "I lied to you all," he said. "I let greed consume me. I am sorry." The congregation erupted, some shouting in anger, others weeping in disbelief. Mama Raquel tried to defend her husband, but the crowd wouldn't hear it. Zacchaeus was stripped of his title and forced to return the wealth he had stolen. The villagers came together to help those who had been hurt, including the Mwangi family. The stabbed believers were rushed to the hospital, and slowly the village began to heal. As for Zacchaeus, he was banished from the village, his name becoming a cautionary tale for generations. After Zacchaeus' confession, the once grand house of grace stood abandoned, its walls echoing with the memories of manipulated faith. The once vivid paintings of angels and doves on the walls now seemed like mocking reminders of the lies told within. The villagers were left to grapple with their disillusionment. Many, like Amina, felt hollow. If the pastor we trusted was lying, where does that leave us? She asked aloud one evening, sitting in the center of the village. Even those who hadn't been scammed by Zacchaeus felt the sting of betrayal. Faith, once a comforting refuge, now felt tainted. The Mwangi family sat in the ruins of their wealth, their eldest son vowing, "We will rise again, but this time with wisdom." A group of villagers led by Mzee Karanja and Benja decided that exposing Zacchaeus wasn't enough. They needed to address the root of the problem: blind faith and unchecked power. Elders convened a meeting under the big baobab tree at the heart of the village. Everyone came, from the youngest children to the oldest grandmothers. Stories poured out about how Zacchaeus had manipulated the desperate, fake healings, staged testimonies, and outtreasured demands of money. "We should have questioned him," one man said, shaking his head. "But we were too afraid. We thought doubting him meant doubting God." Zekaranja raised his hand. "Faith is not the problem," he said. "The problem is putting faith in a man instead of God." The first step toward healing was rebuilding trust within the community. The villagers who had been manipulated and starved were given priority. Food and medical care were arranged, with everyone pitching in. Amina, whose fragile body had been a testament to Zacchaeus' cruel fasting rules, began to recover. She smiled weakly as her neighbors brought her bowls of steaming soup. "You are not alone," they assured her. The Mwangi's family, once too proud to accept help, now found solace in the support of their neighbors. The same trucks they once owned were now being used by other villagers to transport foods and goods. As the village moved forward, one question lingered. Where had all the money Zacchaeus collected gone? Zekaranja and Benja decided to investigate. They uncovered shocking details: offshore bank accounts, hidden properties in the city, and even lavish vacations Zacchaeus and Mama Raquel had taken while their followers fasted. This discovery fueled the villagers' anger, but it also gave them a sense of closure. This wasn't just about faith, Benja told the villagers. It was about greed, and we can never let this happen again. With the help of the villagers, the Mwangi family began to rebuild their lives. The community pooled resources to help them buy back a small piece of their land. "Your generosity won't be forgotten," said Mr. Mwangi, his voice thick with emotion. "We will use this land to feed the village, not just ourselves." True to their word, the Mwangi family planted crops and started a community farm. The fields became a symbol of resilience, growing strong under the sun and rain. Months later, a rumor spread through the village. Zacchaeus had returned. He was spotted near the edge of the forest, looking disheveled and thin. Curiosity turned to fury as the villagers confronted him. "Why have you come back?" Amina demanded, her voice trembling with both fear and anger. Zacchaeus knelt, tears streaming down his face. "I've come to ask for forgiveness," he said. "I have nothing left. I just want to make things right." The villagers were torn. Some wanted to drive him away, while others saw his desperation as genuine. Zekaranja stood up to address the crowd. "Forgiveness is not for his sake," he said. "It's for ours. We cannot move forward while holding on to anger." The village agreed to let Zacchaeus stay, but only under strict conditions. He was to work for the community, tending to the fields and repairing the homes of those he had wronged. Zacchaeus' once pristine hands became rough and calloused. As he toiled under the sun, he worked in silence, bearing the weight of the villagers' distrust and disdain. As Zacchaeus labored, Nina found her voice. She began speaking at the village gatherings, sharing a story of survival and the lessons she had learned. "We were all hungry," she said, her voice steady, "not just for food, but for hope. Let's make sure no one in our village is ever that desperate again." Her words inspired the community to start new initiatives: education programs, small business, and collective farming. The villagers decided to repurpose Zacchaeus' church. With the help of Benja, they turned it into a community center, a place for meetings, celebrations, and learning. The colorful windows, once a backdrop for Zacchaeus' lies, now shone brightly as children played and villagers shared meals together. Over time, Zacchaeus' attitude began to change. He no longer spoke with arrogance or tried to defend his actions. Instead, he listened and learned from those he had wronged. One day, he approached the Mwangi family. "I can't undo what I've done," he said, his voice breaking, "but I want to help rebuild what I destroyed." The family accepted his help. not out of trust, but out of hope. Not everyone was ready to forgive. Some villagers had moved away, too hurt by the betrayal to stay. Others turned their backs on faith altogether. Amina visited those believers, urging them to return. Faith isn't about a man, she told them. It's about the strength we find in each other. Benja, now a respected figure in the village, decided to stay and continue his mission. He began organizing workshops on critical thinking and finance literacy, ensuring that no one would fall victim to another con artist. The village began to blossom in ways it never had before. The Mwangi family's community farm thrived, providing food for everyone. Amina, once frail and voiceless, was now a leader who organized village meetings. Even those who had moved away began to return. Slowly but surely, the scars of the Zakayo betrayal began to fade, replaced by a newfound strength and unity. Benja introduced savings groups and family cooperatives. People no longer relied on prophecies for their future. They worked hard and planned together. Despite his tarnished name, Zakayo continued to work quietly for the village. He repaired homes, tended the fields, and even helped the Mwangi family expand their farm. One day while planting cassava, Zakayo approached Benja. "Do you think I'll ever be forgiven?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Benja looked at him thoughtfully. "Forgiveness isn't something you can demand, it's something you earn. Keep working and let time do its part." One evening, Amina found Zakayo sitting alone under the baobab tree. His once pristine suit had been replaced with a simple work shirt, and his hands were blistered from labor. "I hated you," Amina began, her voice steady. "You made me starve myself, you made me lose hope." Zakayo looked down, unable to meet her gaze. "I deserve your hatred," he said, "but I've realized something." Amina continued, "Hating you only kept me in the past. I'm letting go, not for you, but for me." Zakayo nodded, tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he whispered. The villagers eventually decided they needed a spiritual leader again, but this time they were determined not to repeat their mistake. After careful deliberation, they chose Mzee Karanja to lead their new church. Under his guidance, the church became a place of honesty and humility. There were no more grandiose promises of wealth or healing, only lessons of love, community, and hard work. Mzee Karanja made it clear, faith is not a transaction, it's a relationship with God and with each other. 1 year after Zakayo's confession, the village gathered to celebrate their transformation. The community center, once Zakayo's church, was filled with laughter and music. Zakayo stood at the back, watching quietly. He didn't expect to be welcome, but he couldn't help feeling proud of what the village had become. Amina noticed him and walked over. "You should join us," she said. Zakayo hesitated. "Do you think they'll ever truly forgive me?" "Some already have," Amina said. "And the rest? That's up to you." Zakayo stepped forward, joining the celebration. The villagers greeted him with cautious smiles. While the scars of his betrayal still lingered, the village was no longer defined by the pain he caused. The star lit up the night sky. The villagers danced, sang, and shared their dreams for their future. The once desperate community had risen from the ashes, stronger than ever. And Zakayo, though humble and stripped of his title, had found a new purpose, to serve the very people he had once deceived. The village of Kikuyu Hills was no longer a place of blind faith or manipulation. It was a place of resilience, hope, and unity, a testament to what a community could achieve when it stood. From this story, we learn the dangers of blind faith and the importance of critical thinking. It outlines how manipulation and greed can exploit vulnerable people, especially when they are desperate for answers. The story also teaches that true healing and growth come from community, honesty, and accountability. Forgiveness, though difficult, can be a powerful tool for personal redemption and rebuilding relationships. Ultimately, it reminds us that faith should not be based on promises of wealth or miracles, but on love, hard work, and mutual support. Thank you for watching. Kindly like, subscribe, and share.